Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video on dimensional analysis. This video is now covering two non-base units. So when we're starting with a non-base unit and then we're trying to convert to a non-base unit. So again, remember this is found in the ChemQuest, converting units on the second page. There are 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 steps that I will walk us through. So, when we are identifying these problems, when to use the steps when we have 2 non-base units. So to figure that out, you have to look at the units that you're trying to convert. So in this first problem that we're going to solve together, convert 0.0035 kilometers to micrometers. Remember that U symbolizes micrometers. So we know that this is a 2-step problem because we have 2 prefixes. In the previous video, I solved problems that only had one. They only had one prefix. So if we compared grams to kilograms, this one has 2, kilo and micro. So that's how you know you need to use the steps to solve for 2 non-base units. So again, it starts off the same way. We start by setting up our t, and then we put what we want to convert in the top left corner. In this case, it's 0.0035 kilometers. Next, the second step is to then convert to our base unit first, and then we continue our t to convert to the unit in question. So in this problem, the base unit is meters. The reason why it's meters is because it's the symbol that comes after the prefix. So we'll start by converting to meters. Remember, just like in the previous problems, when we want to convert to goes in the numerator. What we want to cancel out goes in the denominator. So now our kilometers canceled and we're in meters. So now we're in the base unit. Now we can continue the second part of step 2 and we can convert to the unit in question. In this problem we want to convert to micrometers. So micrometers is the unit in question. So again, we put what we want to convert to in the numerator. So in that case it's micrometers. And then we put meters in the denominator because that's what we want to cancel. So guys, 2-step problems, you need to use 2 conversions from our conversion table. So first, we'll look at this first part. So this first part, we need to identify which section of our table to use. Remember, you always look at the prefix to identify that table. In this case, the prefix is K. It's kilo because kilometers. So we look back at that conversion table and we look at the kilo row. What that tells us, remember guys, I strongly recommend taking the time to write these down. It tells us 1 kilo base unit equals 1,000 base units. So then this time, again, we can plug in the base unit. Where's this base unit? In this problem, it's meters. So we'll write meters in. Now we can use this conversion to plug the numbers in. It tells us 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer. So we put a 1 next to the km. That equals 1,000 meters. So we put a 1,000 next to the meters. Now we need to do the same thing for the second part of our fraction, the second part of our t that we added this time. We need to do the same thing. Look up the conversion. This case, we use the U, the micro, because that's the prefix. So we come over to our conversion table. We look at the micro part of our table. So again, take the time and write it down. What that tells us is 1 micro base unit equals 1 times 10 to the negative 6 base units. So just like we did in the previous problem, we'll cross off base unit and we'll write meters in because meters is the base unit. So it tells us 1 micrometer. So we put a 1 next to micrometer equals 1 times 10 to the negative 6 meters. 1 times 10 to negative 6 meters. And then lastly, just like in the last problem, step 4 was to solve. So now we multiply all the numerators together and then we divide by the denominators. So what that does is it cancels out our kilometers, it cancels out our meters, and then we solve. Remember, we can solve by typing this into the calculator. this equals 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that equals 3,500,000, or 3.5 times 10 to the 6 micrometers. Okay, so the next example that I wanted to solve is right down here. This one's convert 4.17 times 10 to the 11th millimeters into megameters. Sorry, grams. Sorry, I don't know why I said meters. Milligrams into megagrams. So I picked this one on purpose, guys. That way we can remember the difference between a lowercase m milli versus capital M mega. So remember, guys, this is a tricky problem because the only difference is a lowercase versus a capital letter. So be very, very careful when you solve these problems. Don't be one of the students that confuses lowercase m and capital M. Make sure you look it up on that table. You always have access to that table, and that table tells you the symbol. So remember, lowercase m versus capital M. So we'll start the same way. Step 1, we'll set up our t. So we'll set up our t. We'll write what we're converting in the top left. This time is 4.17 times 10 to the 11th milligrams. Oh, let's focus in. There we go. Now we set up our t. Just like in the previous problem, what we want to convert to goes in the numerator. What we want to cancel goes in the denominator. So this is a two-step problem again because we have two prefixes. So remember, step 2 tells us to convert to the base unit first and then convert to the unit in question. So in this problem, the base unit is grams because it's the letter that comes second. So we need to convert to grams first. So we put that in the numerator. Then what we want to cancel goes in the denominator, the milligrams. Remember, plug all of your units in first and then go back and use the conversion table to plug the numbers in. The units tell us where to put the numbers. So now we want to convert to megagrams. So we put the capital M megagram in the numerator, and then we put grams in the denominator. Now we go back and we use that conversion table. So in this first section, the prefix is lowercase m milli. So we want to look at the milli section of our table, which is right there. Remember, guys, take the time and write out the conversion. It makes it a lot harder to mess up. It tells us 1 base unit, we'll plug in gram afterwards, equals 0.001 base units. So now we go back and we cross off the base unit and we write what it is. In this problem, it's grams. So we write grams. So we write grams. Now we can plug the numbers in. It tells us 1 milligram. So we put a 1 next to milligram equals 0.001 grams. So we put 0.001 next to the grams. Now we need to do the same thing for the other part of our table. This time we're focusing on mega because the capital M is the prefix and that capital M stands for mega. So we look at the mega section of our table. Remember, guys, take the time, write out the step, especially if you're struggling writing in which unit the number goes next to. It tells us 1 mega base unit equals 1 times 10 to the 6 base units. You can also, if you choose, remember the table also says a million. So you can write a million if you want. However, I tend to use the scientific notation because it's easier to write. You won't accidentally forget to write down a 0 when you're transcribing it over. So now we can plug in the base units. The base units in this problem is still grams. So where it says base unit, we write grams. And now we plug those numbers in. It tells us 1 megagram. So we put a 1 next to the megagram is equal to 1 times 10 to the 6 grams. 1 times 10 to the 6 grams. Now the last step is to solve. So remember, we solve by multiplying the numerators together, dividing by the denominators. So what that does is it cancels out our units. It cancels out our milligrams first, then it cancels out our grams, and we're left with megagrams. So now the last thing we have to do is type this into our calculator and solve. So remember guys, when you type scientific notation in your calculator, use parentheses. That way it doesn't separate it and divide it and do some weird PEMDAS tricks. So use the parentheses when you do type that into your calculator. Once you type all of this in and you solve, you find that your answer is 470 megagrams. So guys, I hope you found this helpful. If you do need any more help, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm happy to help. So like the last video, I will end this with a joke before I say goodbye. So what do you call an alligator in a vest? An investigator. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I will see you guys next class. Bye.